Humans, it is I, Mr. Bell, with the third day that we are working on these cardboard sculptural masks. I've already cut out a couple of the shapes that I'm going to put on here. I think I'm going to cut out a few more for this video. This is probably going to be about the second to last day for building the underlying structure of this. Remember, in parts of this we're going to use the outer layers of this cardboard to kind of skin over it so it can be a lot more smooth looking and probably a lot more natural looking and a lot more accurate to what those animals are. Remember, this does not have to look exactly like the animal you're making. I'm making a frog. This is not going to look exactly like a frog. It's going to be kind of a really highly stylized frog. And that is cool. Remember, this isn't about super accuracy. This is about building something that is very interesting looking and kind of thinking about how to make things look cool in 3 dimensions. So again, I've already cut out quite a few of my shapes I'm going to put down today. This is going to be kind of the start, or maybe like the middle point of finishing this guy's frog nose. You know how this needs to stick out more if it's going to look like a frog. Frogs usually kind of have like a pointy nose. So I already cut these out. I'm going to layer them up like so. Noticing that these are going to pretty much stay straight, and then this part is going to look like it's a lot more curvy and slanty ultimately. And that's kind of the look I'm going for, and I want this shape to kind of merge in right around here. And then ultimately I'm going to start building this out a little bit more, but I wanted to make sure that I had an area. I kind of like this area for this guy. I think that's a good place to put his little frog nose. So I cut these out, and I'm going to leave this like this purposely, trying to use that hole that I'm making. I'm going to make that like the nostril of this frog. So I'm going to go ahead and do that quickly, but as I look at this, I think this needs one more layer. So I'm going to do that same technique that we've been doing for this whole thing. I'm going to trace this guy, stand on the edge. For this, I want that to be a little smoother. Now I'm going to trace this guy. Remember, we don't care about the marks on the outside of this. We're going to cover this up and you won't see these marker marks. Then I'm going to trace it so it's smaller. Thinking about kind of, if you know what, have you ever seen like a topographical map? It kind of does, like this can illustrate that things are getting larger, right? Or taller. So this is like the bottom layer, and then this is going to be on top of it. I'm going to cut this guy out. Remember, when I cut out cardboard, I sometimes stay on the line, and then once it gets too hard to stay accurate, I just kind of cut out that basic shape. And then I can just hold it in my hand, and it makes these detail cuts much, much easier. I remember, I want this to be the same curve as that. Let's see, I like how that's stacking. Now that I look at it though, I think I want to trim off a little bit there. And cut this guy out. Bam. Bam. So yeah, I think that's gonna look good. Looking at making sure this is kind of the slope that I want it to have. I think that looks good. That looks good. I think that looks pretty good. There we go. Yeah, and then see what it looks like up here. It's getting to be the way I want it. I think I'm going to add a couple more layers to this nose, kind of up in there. See how this looks. I think I want it to be right around, yeah, that's how I had it. I want those triangles right there. Yeah, I think I'm going to glue this together real quick. Remember, I use a palette knife. You can use whatever tools you want. If you want to just squirt Elmer's glue straight from the bottle, that'll work just fine for this. So I'm going to glue these guys together first in one big chunk. So I want to work from the biggest part upwards towards the smallest part. Put a little glue here, Remember too, I'm going to say is every time we ever use glue, a little bit of glue goes a long way. It's not about how much you use, it's about how much surface area of the cardboard you cover up. If you're using Elmer's glue, I would really push you to really kind of maybe even like literally use your finger to spread it around, because really it's about that coverage that's going to make this strong and kind of like a permanent thing. Just that there. No, I'm going to put that guy there. Remember too, with pretty much all your glues, Elmer's really takes about 5 minutes to kind of set, and then it takes about a half hour for it to be completely dry. And Elmer's glue is basically the exact same stuff that wood glue is. This wood glue has a little bit of plastic in it. It's called a polymer, so it makes it a little stronger, but your regular old school glue, basically the exact same glue. So it's got there. Covering this guy. Bam. Bam. Then I'm going to set this guy to the side to dry. Yeah, that's getting kind of the way I want it. Ultimately, I think I'm going to have this come kind of up, and then I'm going to have it kind of merge into this where those nostrils are. But I think that's good. For now, I'm going to put that to the side, let that dry just a little bit. And then while I'm thinking about this, I really think this guy needs a little bit more like bump to his eye. But I've already glued this down, which means I can't really use the same sneaky technique I've been using to kind of trace this shape to really help me along the way. And that's okay. I am going to just kind of draw it, cut it out, and see if it's the right shape. Once I get it close, it's real easy to make it basically the same shape again. And that side's a little flat, so I'm going to cut out along this side and leave a little extra on purpose. Get that basic shape out. Bam. So for this frog's eye, yeah, that's pretty close. You can always just tell kind of looking at these layers how this sticks a little bit farther, which I don't want. But it does not have to be perfect. So voila, I have a kind of a template now for where this eye is going to be. Again, I want it to get a little bit smaller though, so I'm going to trace this guy. I'm going to go back to that same technique I've been using. Trace this bad boy. Go a little smaller. Right there. Bam. Okay. Yeah, that's getting closer to the way I want it. So I'm going to trace this guy again because I want 2. Bam. Remember, I don't care if these are super clean cuts, but I want them to be pretty close. You really don't want, like if I want this to be round, I don't want to stick off like a little bit of a sharp part like that. I want to trim it. It doesn't really matter so much that it's on the line. I just don't want to leave a big chunk like that because when we put the skin on it, it will really show up. I think pretty good. Got my 2 little extensions for my eyes. Yeah, it's getting there. Kind of reminds me of like an Aztec or an Olmec sculpture. Aztecs are the precursor culture to the Mexican people, the modern Mexican people now. That guy right there. Squish. beauty. It's getting there, getting there, getting there. Now I'm going to glue on this guy. This guy's pretty dry already. See, it's actually getting to the point where it'll start ripping cardboard. I'm going to glue that right there. When you're gluing on larger chunks, if you've made like pre-made a chunk and you want to glue it on largely, this you do want to use a little bit more glue, or you want to make really sure you give a pretty decent layer to the whole thing, all the corners of it, because it weighs a little bit more, so this glue's got kind of a bigger job to do. But still, the same principle of a little bit goes a really long way with glue. Bam. Make sure I get that guy. Glue them right there. Yeah, so remember when I'm doing this, the last thing I'll say on this today is if you've made this much progress, you're going to run into the thing that is not exactly what you're picturing in your mind. And I'm definitely thinking that same thing now too, but I'm not going to give up because I know that this does have the potential to be what I'm looking at. When you're doing sculptures, you really have to be kind of thinking like to the future. Like, oh, this part maybe is the part that's distracting, but I think I can just cover it with another piece of cardboard, maybe kind of along this line. Say I'm going to use a template like this. Maybe I would glue something around here, and then I could bring this nose up a little bit, kind of like that little curve of a nose that a frog has. So I think this is pretty good progress. Really, the expectation is that you are about this far along with this project by now. So here's to making some progress. Remember, if you can do this on your own time, awesome. If in class you're not really showing any progress, then we're going to work together. Or if you've made lots of progress, you're welcome to hang out too. That's all I have for today.